Welcome back. So, working on the second problem, remember our first step is to determine what kind of conic section it is. So our first one, we have both our variables are squared. We have different coefficients, and we have one of our squared variables, our coefficient is negative, so that means this is going to be a hyperbola. And then for our second equation, we have two squared variables with different coefficients and an addition sign in between. So that means this is an ellipse. Okay, so that's our first step. And remember, our second step now is to take our equations and get y by itself. So I would like you to do this on your own. And so press pause and solve both these equations for y, and then we'll compare in a moment. Okay, so now I want you to double check with the work that you have to make sure that your y1, 2, 3, and 4 are all the same as what I have written down here. If it's not, please make the changes necessary. So you can pause it and make the changes. So we are going to now put these into our graphing calculator, each of these equations. So just like we did before, let's do y1 first. So we have our square root, and we have a numerator. So let's make sure we put parentheses around our numerators for all of these. Okay, so we have parentheses, negative 3x squared plus 11, and that is over a negative 4. We go down to y2, so that's a negative square root of, don't forget your parenthesis, negative 3x squared plus 11. That's divided by negative 4. Now as we go down to y3, just like last time, I would go all the way over to the left, hit enter, and then go down to y4 and hit enter again. So this is just to make sure, or to help you tell the difference between your two graphs. So now let's plug in y3. So we have the square root and your parenthesis, negative 3x squared minus 12x plus 79. Close your square root, divided by 4. And then your last one, negative square root of parenthesis, negative 3x squared minus 12x plus 79, close parenthesis, divided by 4. Okay, so make sure all your equations look like this in your calculator. And again, let's make sure we're in zoom standard, so our standard window, so we hit zoom. We go to our option number 6. And there's our first graph, our hyperbola. And here is our ellipse. Okay, so we're going to have to sketch this graph eventually. But before we do, let's take a look. We have 4 intersection points. So we are going to have to find each of these intersection points, okay? So just like we did last time, we're going to go to second, trace, go to intersect, and let's make sure we're in y1. So as a reminder, our y1 is our hyperbola graph. So let's just see where we're at on that graph. Just move a little bit to the right until we can see our cursor. There we are. So we're on our first graph here, so we know if we're at this graph, let's just look for this intersection point here. So we're on our first curve, our first graph. Now it's going to jump automatically to our second curve, which is this one below. But we don't want to know that. We don't want to be on that equation. We want to be on this top equation here where we're intersecting. So we're going to have to hit the down button to switch equations to our y3, which is this positive top part of our ellipse. So now you can see our cursors on our graph, so we hit enter. Then we can move a little bit over towards the intersection point more and hit enter again as we guess. So it gives us our intersection point of 3, -2, so let's graph that. So we are at 3, was it 3, 2? Yep, 3, 2. So we have that point. Let's do the same thing for our other point, so second trace, and then option 5 for intersect. So we're on Y1 still, but this time let's do this bottom intersection point. So let's go down to our Y2, which is this line below. So we're on our Y2 line, okay? So we can hit enter. And then we want to be on this bottom curve. Right now we're on Y3, so let's get to Y4. So now we're on our right equation, so we can hit enter. And now let's guess, we can move a little bit towards the intersection point and hit enter again. That gives us the point of 3, -2. So if we do that, we'll be right here. Okay, so now let's do the other two intersection points. Second trace, intersect. So this time we're going to have to move over a lot. To get to our intersection point. Here we go. So we're on our first curve. We're going to go for this top left intersection point, so we can hit enter. Now it took us to our bottom curve down here, but we want to be on this darker curve, so now we are on it, so we can hit enter. And now let's just get a little bit closer and hit enter. So our intersection point on our left side is -5, 4. -5, +4, so we're right here. Then same thing for our lower point. Or now we're on curve 1, we want to be on curve 2. So hit enter. Then we want to be on curve 4. And then we can hit enter. And then I'm going to go a little bit to the left, hit enter. It gives us the point of -5, -4. -5, -4. Here we go. Okay, so we have these 4 intersection points. Now we have to trace our graph, or sketch our graph. So let's see, let's do our ellipse first. So if we have our 2 x-intercepts, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, between 4 and 5. So let's plot that point, and then we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, between 7 and 8. So like, I'll use a different color, between 4 and 5, and between 7 and 8 roughly. So our ellipse is going to have to go through all of these points, so let's connect it. And if we wanted to, we can get our y-intercept. Let's just count 1, 2, 3, 4 roughly in between there. So I'll give it that point. So let's connect these dots. Whoop. Okay, there's our rough ellipse there. So let's do our hyperbola next. So we have 1, 2, or like a little bit to the right of 2, and 1, 2 for our hyperbola. I'm going to use orange. So we have around 2 and around -2. And let's see if there's anything else that we can get from this graph. Not too much, but we know it'll intersect at these purple points here. So let's draw in our hyperbola. And the other side. There we go. So we have our ellipse, we have our hyperbola, and we know it intersects at these points. So let's write out our 4 points. We have 3, 2. 3, -2, -5, -4, and -5, +4. Okay? So if you wanted to make a little note to yourself of how to remember what to do on your calculator, because the hardest part is maneuvering the different steps of your calculator. So as a reminder, you go left and right to move along the equation that you're currently on your graph. So we can write that down here. I'll do it in purple because purple's a nice color. So on calculator. So to move along, let's say graph, click left, right buttons. And if you want to change equations or jump from graph to graph, click up or down. Okay? And hopefully that'll help a little bit. If you have this written down, that shows that you watched the video, and I will give you an extra point of a point of extra credit. So yay for you, and you can put a little smiley face next to that because extra credit is awesome. Okay? So this concludes our video, and I will see you in class.